Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of EDTalks. My friend Robert Henehan is with me. Robert, welcome to EDTalks.
Thank you. Happy to be here, Ed.
Robert, it's so great to have you because, obviously it's a very in vogue topic we're going to talk about. You as the AI director at Cactus Health Resources. So we want to obviously talk about AI, but you've got this brilliant background. That's what makes you such a special guest. Tell us a little bit about your background in terms of your career and how you got to where you are today. And then we're going to jump right into, hey, let's talk about 2 or 3 things that every healthcare executive or board member should understand or know about AI strategy.
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up, my parents are doctors. I went to school, thought I was going to be a doctor. Instead, I went to Epic. And so I started my career at Epic and talking to doctors and helping doctors. And the funny thing was, I was like, okay, maybe I go to medical school. And the doctor was like, why would you do that? You're already telling us what to do. So my focus as I got there was meaningful use, core measures, quality measures. So how can we use this technology to improve patient outcomes? And how do we do that with the data that we're entering into the system? So that's what got me going. And that's what excites me about all the new technology.
Yeah, that's awesome. Somehow you went over to the West Coast, right? And you were at El Camino for a while.
Yeah. So after that, I went to work at El Camino and took over a role over data and analytics, and then eventually over all their business applications. So I got to see how do you implement the technology, and then how do you decide what to implement? How do you manage those processes, and how do you make decisions about what to roll out and implement as well? And
Yeah,
how do you manage it? Yeah.
that's real cool. So you have this epic experience, great foundation, great leadership, teamwork, training, and then you have the real world in terms of on the provider side at El Camino, and then you jumped into the vendor side. Tell us about how that happened.
Yeah, so I wanted to sort of see what else was out there, and so I actually disconnected for a while, went on a nice long trip, and learned a bunch of new ways and of thinking. Sort of stumbling into a Buddhist temple in Thailand, and so what that taught me was to be open to new opportunities and change. And so when I came back, I just connected with some of the people that I really cared about and was inspired by. And some of those were at Cactus. And so I just wanted to be with people, and I wanted to be with people that inspired me and that I could help and be a part of now transforming the lives and organizations of others.
Yeah, so you've had this very rich experience, and I wish we had time. I'd love to dive more into your Buddhist temple experience. But if you're speaking, and I know you do, this is what part of what you do. You speak to the C-suite, perhaps board members as well of hospitals, and everyone's like, what do we do about AI strategy? And as some people are very forward thinking and they're already, well down the path. And I would say a lot of people are sort of in this dipping their toe a little bit, but meanwhile, AI is advancing, that train has left the station. And so you don't want to dip your toes too long, right? So what are 2 or 3 sort of practical words of advice you might give people around, AI strategy, what they should be doing?
I'd say for AI strategy, sort of you had the concept of dipping your toe in the pool. You want to find the person at your organization or bring them in that are swimming in it every day.
Yeah.
So it's constantly changing, and you want to find someone who can be your partner as you are trying to learn the technology, the concepts, and how everybody has this idea of AI. AI might even mean something different in different contexts. So how do you actually decide who's going to be your partner for that? And then can that partner help you identify the risks and opportunities? Because I think the other thing is we all have so much data and technology. How do we take that, what we are already using and what we already have, instead of adding a bunch of new features? Let's make sure we're building on the foundation that we have, and that foundation is actually strong. I think one of the big risks right now is people just want to implement AI, but if you haven't looked at what data you're using to build that out, you're putting yourself at risk to make bad decisions because you don't have strong data that you haven't evaluated. So I think those are the 2 risks: find the people, and then make sure you're making good decisions off of the infrastructure that you have.
Yeah, no, that's very sage advice. And talk to me a little bit about some other observation. I know your background a little bit, and you talk about this court jester, and how does that sort of fit into the AI conversation?
So I had this idea of the court jester from being in a museum and just being like, wow, there's so much beautiful stuff here. And I just turned and I was like, I just asked the security guard, there's so many security guards walking around the museums. I was like, hey, what's your favorite piece here? And so he took me over to a small corner that had this jester in it and told me the history of court jesters in the 1200s, 1400s. And it was this picture that I would have just walked by. And so what that taught me, and what I've learned since then, is just ask the people around you, especially the people you wouldn't be most aware of, what they see as the opportunities and the lessons they can teach you. And that's, I think, going to connect perfectly with AI too. So, yeah.
Yeah, totally. When I read that, and it was a brilliant observation, right? It's the everyday people. Sometimes we look just for an expert or something, and oftentimes it's clearly the people that are doing the work every day that'll probably be the best resource that you can use. And then talk to me about the concept of impermanence.
Yeah. So, one thing that I've learned and focused on now, and it's extremely valuable in this ever changing world, is like the only thing that's permanent is impermanence. And so, if we aren't open to that, we're always going to be suffering. So, the fact that we're craving or attached to either the past and the way things used to be, or this future that AI is going to solve this specific problem with this specific technology, we're always going to be unhappy. So we have to be open to letting go of these things in the way they were and not attached to some specific solution being going to be successful. So that gets to like, you need to pilot new technologies. You need to be open to new ideas from throughout the organization. So that's sort of the fun part is as soon as you let go of this need for the past to be a certain way or the future to be a certain way, you're just going to be able to experience the present and enjoy it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that word, and I'm going to have to do a little bit more research on it. It's very similar to another philosophy I've embraced, and that's you can't pour new wine into old wineskins because you'll ruin the new wine, which you don't never want to do, and then the old wineskin won't be able to hold it, and it'll break as well. And yeah, it's the same sort of thing, right? Whether it's AI or other technology advancements or life in general, you have to realize that nothing's permanent and is always going to change, right? So you have to embrace that and sort of go with that flow and help, and then take that gives you actually empowers you, right, to take some leadership over it and try to make adjustments and craft, understanding that things are always going to change. So yeah, so how does let's weave it back to AI strategy. Like, how might you actualize this concept with AI strategy?
So I think that's where you really want to be able to be open to new ideas and trying new things. Having been in the role of, on the technology side, hey, there's all this cool stuff. You can do all these things with Epic reports and analytics. And then you've got the other side that's like, well, we need to slow down. We need to validate that. We can't just roll out these reports and start making decisions if we don't know if it's actually accurate. And then I've also been on the, enterprise side or the healthcare system side where it's like, everybody's got an idea of new things to implement, and you're trying to evaluate hundreds of tickets about, hey, we want to implement this new technology. And so it's important to sort of have governance and slow things down to make sure you're making strategic decisions. But that can go the other way too, because I've also been there like, hey, cool, we're going to bring that through our steering committees and governance. And so that way it'll be a couple years. So I don't have to worry about that right now. So it's finding that balance and then finding the people to help you navigate that, and then the tools that are going to be easy to bring up or bring down if they don't work out. And so you need to be open to these things not working out as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Robert, let me ask you one last question, because you've seen a lot of leaders now on the provider side. Obviously at Epic, you were working with a lot of different leaders, a lot of different hospitals, Cactus Health Resources, and then you were part of the machine, if you will, when you were at El Camino. What is one thing that you would recommend, like as a best practice for a leader to embrace as they kind of go down, whether it's AI or something else, but this new technology? What's one thing that you like saw really work? Like, was there one, and it's probably more than one, obviously, but if you could think of one key that was common amongst the successful leaders, what was that thing?
Always learning. So the people that are always open to learning new ideas and always waking up, reading what's changed, and then being able to see, okay, how can I incorporate that into my organization, in my life? And also empowering their people to change too. So, learning, supporting training and education and conferences, that's where you actually get the most value out of yourself and out of your people. So you want to make your people stronger every day. Then they feel better about that too.
Yeah, Robert, you're full of wisdom. You're a great person. I'll put how to contact you and Cactus Health Resources in the show notes. Thank you for being my guest on EdTalks.